On today's episode of the DuckZone503 Podcast, we're going to be recapping the Week 7 matchup of number 8 Oregon versus number 7 Washington. I'm your host, Dominiqk Peterson. This is the DuckZone503 Podcast, where we talk all things Oregon football. Let's get into it, people.
Welcome to the DuckZone503 Podcast, talking all things Oregon football, with your host, Dominiqk Peterson. Let's go.
Welcome into today's edition of the DuckZone503 Podcast. The date is Monday, October 16th, 2023, and I am happy to be with you somewhat. As you know, the Ducks lost this one, guys, 36-33. Oregon drops a tough game in Seattle, Washington. I was there for it, guys. I've met a lot of you people. I have enjoyed it so much. Meeting people who listen to the podcast, who tune in, who follow me on social media, and connecting with you guys face to face, man. Talking to you guys about Oregon football. That's what this is all about. Listen, I love getting in front of the camera. I love doing this, but to actually meet you guys, to actually physically meet everybody who follows me, who tunes in and tunes into my work, it means everything to me because, as you know, it's a fan-based podcast. I'm just a fan. I don't claim to be an expert, no journalist or nothing. I just give my honest take about the Oregon football team. I'm not funded by any big-time media. I just decided to launch a podcast one day, and we're kind of growing here. 951 subscribers. I'm trying to get to 1,000, and you guys have been steadily doing that. Please make sure to subscribe if you enjoy Oregon content just like this. You know, if you haven't checked out the vlog already, my social medias, I'm always giving you guys updates, recruit interviews. I'm hustling for you guys as much as I can to give you as much Oregon football content as I can. Let's get to 1,000 subscribers. If you listen on Spotify, rate the podcast, please, 5 stars if you haven't already. Oregon drops this one. Tough game when Oregon statistically, we'll look at the stats here in a second, really just outpaced Washington every stat category. I mean, Oregon played the better ball game. Washington made the plays when it was needed. Plain and simple. If I had to put it in a sentence, look, Oregon, they could have won this game. Plain and simple. They had this game in their hand. And they were a kick away from sending to field goal where it felt like they had a lot of momentum. But hey, before I say anything about Oregon, hats off to Washington, man. Hats off to the Huskies. Look, I talk my shit during rivalry week. I'm not going to sit here and back up and retract anything and say, oh, no, they did this. No. Hey, Washington flat out, awesome team, deserves to be top 4. They're at number 5 in the new AP poll. We'll look at that in a second. But Washington is a real team, guys. I mean, this offense, and I knew that coming in. I gave them credit, man. And I knew this was going to be probably the toughest test for Oregon coming in to this game in Seattle. Top 10 matchup, first top 10 matchups. These fans in Washington have been waiting for this moment. You got to think about it, guys. They've only had 7 wins in 30 years against the Ducks. After dominating the Ducks in the 70s and 80s, we went through the history of my preview and prediction episode with the Husky. But look, Washington has a long history of dominating the Ducks. They were ready for this one. It's the first top 10 matchup. They feel like they believe. They had Michael Penix. He was number 1 in the Heisman rankings. College game day was in town. Josh Pate, the whole country tuned into this game. And they just made the plays when it was needed. Now, Oregon drops 1 spot in the AP poll. They go to number 9. Washington moves up 2 spots to number 5, which I think they well deserve to be either 1 or 2. Beating Oregon, you know, they didn't. It's not like they dominated them, okay? Oregon really outplayed them, to be real, but they made the plays when it was needed, and we'll talk about that. But this just right here, this tells you Oregon dropping 1 spot. What does this tell you? Everything is still in front of you if you're Oregon, okay? What do we come to? What was the goals coming into this season? It was Pac-12 championship and college football playoff if we can. We got to win that conference championship. That's number 1. And then if you win your conference, you're more than likely going to be in that college football playoff conversation. We have 1 loss. Texas has 1 loss there. And as of right now, those are the only 1-loss teams in the AP. Now, Texas is 1 ahead of us. If it was up to me, I'm Oregon biased, but I think that losing at Washington by barely a kick to the right, I would put us in number 8. But that's telling you that we're going to need, Oregon puts themselves in this conversation every year. They put themselves behind the 8 ball, and it's tough. But with one loss, you're still alive. You're still alive because it was a respectable loss. It wasn't like the Georgia loss where you got blown out and now nobody's talking about you. No, everybody looked at that Oregon team, that Oregon loss, and said, hey, they just lost to a really good Washington team, and that Washington team just made plays when it was needed on their home field. And that's what that was. So Oregon drops to number 9. So it's not too bad of a scenario there. Look, only dropping 1. Ohio State, Michigan still play each other. I mean, look, Penn State and Ohio State play each other this weekend. So still a lot of big-time matchups. North Carolina looks to be still undefeated. Alabama at number 11 looks to be really underrated there. They're looking to get it together here. They let Arkansas back in that ball game, but they pretty much dominated that game. But Oregon's still in the thick of it, guys. They still have everything in front of them. If they go out and look, Utah looks beatable. Okay, I get we're on the road. That looks like a tough game. We got the Beavs at the end of the season, but those look like Oregon are more favored in those games rather than this game against Washington. And it's going to be tough. We still play USC at home. Now, USC just got blown out by Notre Dame. So that kind of makes me favor Oregon even more in that matchup. So, look, guys, if Oregon's able to run the table, which is going to be very difficult, but if they can, which they're more than capable of, and they've shown that, Washington and Oregon definitely look like the 2 best teams in this conference. If Washington wins out or even with 1 loss, it's possible we can see Oregon and Washington again. And me as a fan, as a Duck fan, I'm just praying for that because I don't want to wait till next year to get bragging rights. I don't want to hear it all year from Washington fans. I would love nothing more but for Oregon to win out. Hell, Washington to win out. Win every game, Washington. Let's go to the Pac-12 championship. Have them believing they're going to the college football playoff, and Oregon knock them off in that second matchup. I would love for that to happen. I mean, that's just a dream scenario. I'm not banking on that, but that was like the conversation leaving the stadium. Could these 2 teams meet again? As of right now, it definitely looks like it, right? Like Washington, Oregon, they seem to be tier 1. And then you kind of got like tier 2, Oregon State, Utah, USC kind of being that tier 2 of teams. And Washington State, maybe Arizona, maybe tier 2 Arizona. We'll see how good really Arizona is. They've been testing some teams, but Oregon still has everything in front of them placed there at number 9. So the AP poll, the voters looked at Oregon on this loss and respected it because, and we're gonna look at the numbers. I'm gonna give you my takes on Dan Lanning's decisions that in a second. But man, it's great to see this from the AP poll. The college football playoff rankings are gonna come out here sooner rather than later. So that's gonna be interesting how they view this loss. But look, guys, the Ducks were a kick away. They outcompeted Washington everywhere on the field. It's just those key 4th down plays and decisions, and that's where it can get controversial. A lot of people have different opinions, different things they want to say, and I'll give my things here. But let's just go ahead and look at the stat recap real quick. The team stats, the offensive review, the defensive review. Let's start out with the team stats. So like I said, guys, look, 31-24 in first downs. 3rd down efficiency, you were 10 of 16, 5 of 11 for Washington. This is the big one right here, the 4th down efficiency, guys. Oregon was 0 of 3 there, while Washington was 2 of 3, making the plays when it was time to make plays. Passing yards. Look, if you would have told me Oregon was going to have more passing yards this game and put up 200 rushing yards at the same time, before the game, I would have told you, okay, Oregon's win this game by 2 touchdowns. Guys, 240 rushing yards, 99 rushing yards for Washington, 337 passing yards for Oregon, 316 passing yards for Washington. The run game with the 99 rushing yards, I get it. It doesn't seem like that's much. That's a lot for Washington. Washington does not run the ball as much as Oregon does. 23 rushing attempts to 40 rushing attempts for Oregon. But man, Washington, they ran the ball effectively, especially in that first quarter. That first play, man, was a first down on a run, a pitch play, a simple pitch play. They were averaging at the end of the game at 4.3 yards per carry. They were up to 5 most of that game at 5 yards per carry. And that's something that you just could not let happen if you're the Oregon defense. One of the keys to the game, we'll look at those for me coming in this game, was run the ball. I knew that this Washington defense, they had trouble tackling in space. Bucky Irving, really good in space, really good at making guys miss, has great balance, physical runner, and we've seen that in this game. We kept feeding Bucky. We kept feeding Jordan James. Those two backs were really excellent. 204 yards, 5 yards per carry. It was really working for the Ducks. But on the other end, you got to stop the other run game. If you're going to have an excellent run game, you got to just dominate the other side of that run game. You cannot allow almost 5 yards per carry, which was Washington's yards per rush. It was 4.3, but most of the time it was around that 5 yards per carry run. And man, it's such a weapon when you have a great pass offense like Rome Odunze, Jalen Polk, Jalen McMillan. He got injured this game, but all those wide receivers you got to account for, and you got to just have your front four shut down that run game. And they did a better job when they got down 11. After that moment, throughout the rest of that game, they really shut down Washington's defense as a whole. But other than that, obviously the last 2 minutes, Washington got down the field. But man, the defense really stepped up. When they got down 11, it was go time. They knew they had to step up. That defense really locked in. They shut down that run game, and you saw the yards per rush kind of come down. But overall, I just did not like the run defense. It's not like Washington really gashed him. It's not really a weapon for Washington, but it was such an X factor. It was such a key to this game for the defense, because if you allow that running back to get 4 or 5 yards per carry, it makes the defense keep eyes in that backfield. It allows Rome Odunze, Jalen Polk to get behind the defense a little bit, make those safeties creep up a little bit, allow them to get play action more effectively. And you already have an explosive offense on the outside that you got to take care of. You had to take care of that run game. Washington kind of ran the ball really effectively. They finished with 99 yards rushing, but again, it's not their strong suit, but it was such an X factor for them. I really like what Oregon did offensively. Look, Oregon offense, they came out to play. They only scored 18 points throughout 3 quarters, and then they just kicked it in gear. They started relying on that run game, which I really wanted to see. Okay, and if we're going to talk about the offense, let's talk about Will Stein's play calling, because that's something that everybody wanted to talk about, right? Everybody kind of had a comment on Will Stein's play calling. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't like so much of this east and west passing stuff. I don't like the rolling out on the field. It cuts half the field in half. Look, when you roll your quarterback out, a lot of on these fourth downs, you've seen Bo Nix get the ball and just start rolling out. The play before halftime on the first fourth down, we rolled Nix out. And, he also missed a couple guys through the middle. He kind of panicked a little bit in that setting. Look, I'm not a hater on Bo Nix, but when you're 0-7 in your career on the road and against top 10 teams, and you look at the film, guys, he missed some throws over the middle for Trayshawn Holden on the second fourth down. Let's talk about that one. You got Troy Franklin, a one-on-one on the outside. You're down 18-29 at this point. It's towards the end of the third here, middle of the third. You're at the red zone here. And Troy Franklin, okay, you go one-on-one there, you lock it in, you think you have a matchup. I get it. But if you just take your time and trust your team, this is what I'm talking about. If you're going to go for it, your team's got to have the most ultimate trust with one another. You got to have, everything locked in. Everything locked in, especially when you're on the road and those hostile territories. And man, it was just tough. It felt like we were a little rushed. Felt like the offense was kind of just going for one favorable matchup. And you had Trayshawn Holden right over the middle. If you just would have taken your time, go through your progressions, and you just missed them. That was the second fourth down. On the first fourth down, right before halftime, you're down 22-18 at this point, and you have the opportunity here. You just got an interception. Okay, this is the one where I don't mind. This is the one where I don't mind you taking the field goal. Okay, when you're down 18-22 right before halftime, and you get an interception, you just took momentum in that game. And we know in college football, guys, momentum is everything in college football. Momentum is everything. And everybody wants to debate what we should have done. Let's just start with this first fourth down call at halftime. Okay, we got the interception prior. We came down the field in the red zone. 4th and 2. You kicked 3 points there. Okay, right before halftime, and Dan Lanning came out and said this in the media conference. It's not like I'm the only one saying this. He should have took the 3 points. That's the only one where I had a problem. There was also at the end of the game where he should have punted, and I'll get to that. But we're starting with the first controversial call here. You get an interception right before halftime. You have all the momentum in the world. You go down the field, and I get it. You're in there to win the game. You're in there to trust your team. Look, Oregon's out-recruited Washington the last few years. We feel like we have the better athletes to get the job done. But you got to look where you're at as a head coach. You're 70,000 deep in a heated rivalry in Seattle, Washington. You got game day there. This place is packed to the brim. You just got an interception. You got all the momentum inside. You kick 3 points. You get the ball back after halftime. You take the 3 points there, coach. You take the 3 points. You silence the crowd. Because what happened, guys? They got the stop. Oregon came out in that second half. 3 and out for Oregon. Washington comes out right down the field. Got a touchdown. I get our 2 corners were out during that drive. Kyrie Jackson, Jaleel Florence got injured. So we had our backups in. Triquez Bridges, Dante Manning got caught on that drive. But, man, it was just huge momentum difference there. With Kyrie Jackson interception, I just really felt like Oregon had all the momentum. The Washington crowd got out of it. You just took the points there. You lost this game by 3 right before halftime. Could have been a whole different scenario. Felt like at the end of that game, let's say it was tied. Let's say Washington tied the game instead of Oregon being down by 3 because we took the 3 points before halftime. Oregon had all the momentum at the end of that game. It felt like Oregon would have won it if we went into overtime. I really wish we would have made that kick. Camden Lewis, just automatic, right? Automatic kicker. It just sucks. It's definitely a pressured situation. I would not want to be the kicker in that situation, but it's not like you can blame them, right? It's a team thing here. So that's kind of my take on the first one. I would have said take the field goal before halftime. You had all the momentum in the world with that interception. You were right there. I get you're in there to win it. You want to get ahead of that team. You still would have been down once, but man, momentum is everything in college football. Really, it is everything in college football. And I feel like if you would have took those points, it would have been a little bit of a different ball game. Now, let's talk about the second 4th down call that we didn't get. This is the one where I'm talking about. We're down 18-29. I think it's mid-third quarter here. We're down 18-29. This is after halftime. We went for the first 4th down. We got the ball, 3 and out. Washington got the ball. They score. Now we got the ball. We drove down the field. We're in the red zone. Took a lot of time off the clock, by the way. We're down 11. Need to get it. 4th and 2. We got Troy Franklin on the left side on a one-on-one. Trayshawn Holden was in the slot. Trayshawn Holden, he's going to come do a little post route in the middle. The safety's going to take him. They bring a blitz. There was a one-on-one matchup with Troy. I get it. Troy's your best receiver. He made a lot of big catches, but he's on the far side of the field. Plus, if you go through your progressions, you would have looked, guys, if you go look at that play in the second 4th down call, we're down 18-29 mid-third quarter. Trayshawn Holden comes over the middle, and he's wide open. Wide open over the middle, man. And this is what I said. Bo Nix, he's 0-7 against top 10 teams on the road. Not a good touchdown to turnover ratio in his career. And I get it. 5 of those were in Auburn. The other one was against Georgia. This is the one where I said it. I said in my preview prediction, he is the most set up to win this game with this Oregon team for his first top 10 win on the road. And he played phenomenally. I mean, statistically, he played better than Michael Penix did. But the thing that Washington did and the thing that Michael Penix did to define his Heisman moment is they made the plays when they needed, when it counted. And Bo Nix just simply didn't. On the halftime play, you can blame Will Stein if you want to. They had him rolling out. That I can feel that could be part of it. I don't like the rollout call. It eliminates half the field. When you roll out the quarterback to one side of the field, now all the defense has to do is defend this amount of the field. Look, you got a whole field here. You roll a quarterback out. Now you only got this side of the field to throw to. It's not like you want your quarterback thrown to the other side of the field, right? That's not what we coach in football. At least I've never been coached that. That would be horrible coaching. So I just don't get it. On a 4th down call, you roll your quarterback out so you eliminate half the field so the defense can have just only half the field to cover. Like, maybe they're trying to use Nix's mobility. Maybe they're saying if nothing's there, run it, and maybe he just didn't run it. I don't know, guys. I'm not the offensive coordinator. Again, I'm just a fan. But it's just really frustrating when you roll out your quarterback and there's nowhere to go and your wide receivers are covered because they only have half a field to work with. Instead of having your quarterback drop back and stay in the pocket and having a whole field to scan and go through your progressions, it was kind of tough. And again, I just felt like And this is nothing against Bo. He had a great game, but I felt like in those moments, those fourth down moments, what we needed, what lost this game is those 2 or 3 plays, right? Was he kind of panicked, man. Like when we ran the first one before halftime, he tried to throw it to Bucky. He was a second late, man. He was just like a second late. He seen it. He kind of waited for somebody else, and then he threw it to Bucky, and the dude was able to knock away because he was a second late. Go watch the film. If he would have threw it 1 second before to Bucky, a laser dart, it probably would have been a touchdown right before halftime. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. Look, that's what I'm doing here. This is not a knock against Knicks. Look, this is not against Knicks. I'm not sitting here saying Knicks had a bad game. I'm saying he had a phenomenal game. But in these parts, on these fourth downs, when he needed to step up, right, bodacious Heisman moment, when we needed him to do it, he was not there to do it. Who was? Michael Penix was. When he got the ball back, he went right down the field and scored. It felt like every time Oregon did get right in the game, Washington had an answer. And I get it. This offense that Washington has is the best in the country. Okay, 3 NFL wide receivers. Jalen Polk, Romo Doomsday is probably the best, arguably. Marvin Harrison Jr. is pretty special at Ohio State. But Romo Doomsday, 1 or 2. I mean, give me any of those guys. Those guys, nobody's going to guard those guys. I mean, Kyrie Jackson couldn't guard him. Dante Manning, Triquez Bridges. They definitely tried their best. They made some plays here and there. Triquez Bridges, shout out him. He played a phenomenal game coming off, Jaleel Florence injuries. I'm going to try to keep you guys updated on that, by the way. Hopefully, Jaleel Florence, our corner, get well soon. He came out of the game and appeared to look like a collarbone or maybe a shoulder. But Triquez Bridges came into the game after that injury, really stepped up, man, really locked down, made tackles, got caught on a couple times. But that's just going to happen with these guys. If you give Michael Penix, a great quarterback like that, time, you're bound to get caught on with these wide receivers. I mean, these are difficult wide receivers to cover no matter what corner is out there. These are NFL type guys, especially Romo Doomsday, man. He had himself a game, 8 receptions, 130 something yards and 2 touchdowns. Troy Franklin had himself a game, 8 receptions, over 150 yards and a touchdown. Had a big play over the top from Bo Nix when we were down 11. Loved that. Bo Nix finished with more passing yards than Michael Penix. So like I said, Bo Nix had himself a game. The difference was the Washington defense, the Washington offense as a team, they stepped up when it mattered, when it was time. Okay, both these teams are very evenly matched. Oregon can run the ball. They're more physical. They can push Washington around. They can do whatever when it comes to the run game. Washington, they can send their wide receivers out. They can pick Oregon apart all down the field. Both these teams have leverages. It just came down to those fourth down calls, came down to Dan Lanning being the more aggressive. And I love an aggressive coach. Do not get me wrong. I love what he's doing. I'm not here to complain and say never go on at fourth down again. Dan Lanning, do it. That is not my sentiment here. My message is you need to know when to go for it, okay? So like I said, the first one at halftime, I say take the points there, man. You just got an interception. You have all the momentum. You're getting the ball back after halftime. Your offense has been moving it. Take the momentum play. Take the points. And Dan Lanning came out in the media, and he even said that. Second one, though, down 11, right? You're down 11 here. I have no problem with Dan Lanning going for it when you're down 11. Number 1 offense in the country, you're down 11 at that point. You're 2 yards away from getting this first down. You got Troy Franklin on a 1-on-1. You like the matchup. You trust your guys. You expect Troy to beat any corner that's on him. And he just didn't do it. Bo Nix also didn't go through his progressions, really. We just spoke about Trayshawn Holden was over the middle open. That one I have no problem. Now let's go when Oregon got the fourth down stop. All the momentum in the world, right? Washington was marching it. They're down 29-33 in the fourth quarter. They get to the goal line. First down, second down, third down, fourth down. Oregon stops them. Looks like the game's almost over here. There's 6 minutes left on the clock. Oregon just got the ball back. Goal line stand. All momentum in the world. We march it down. Tough yard. Washington's playing their ass off. They do not want to lose this game. We get it right around the 49-yard line. 4th and 2. Do we punt it or do we go for it? Dan Lanning's been consistent. We know what he's doing. The offense gets sent back out. There's 2 minutes left on the clock. This is my issue. When to go for it? Momentum is everything in college football. I'm telling you guys now, momentum is everything. Game situation is everything. when you just got a fourth down goal line stand, when your defense, when you were down 11 and your defense hasn't allowed a point since then, and you decide to give them the ball right there at the 50-yard line. Now, I know what you guys, the pushback is, the sentiment's been, well, Dom, they got the number one offense in the country. They would have scored either way. I just have a hard time believing that, my guy. Like, you're saying trust your defense. Message, fine. But you have to make the smart coaching decision as well and look around you. You're in Husky Stadium. There's 70,000 people. You're 2 minutes away from this win. Make the Huskies go the length of the field. They had no timeouts left, too, by the way. No timeouts left. It's not like they could have stopped the clock with any timeouts. They would have had to get out of bounds and all that good stuff. I would have trusted my defense there to defend the length of the field. I do not give the number one offense an opportunity at midfield. And 2 plays later, 33 seconds later, Penix goes down the field. Jalen Polk, Rome Odunze touchdown. I told everybody in the crowd, everybody in the crowd was making like, hey, what does Oregon do? Do they punt? Do they go for it? What do you think they're going to do? I said, I think they're going to go for it, but I would punt because how well the defense was playing. So if we're going to judge this here on Dan Lanning's decisions, right? 2 out of 3. I'm sorry, man. You got to blame Dan for this loss. Now, it's on your players as well to execute. It came down to the players. Dan was not on the field. Dan trusted his players to go out there and get those fourth downs. Look, we've recruited better than Washington. Per pound, per athlete, we got the better athletes. And that's proven through recruiting. That's proven through stats. But that doesn't get you wins. It doesn't get you wins. What gets you wins is making the plays when it's time to make them. By all means, I love the aggressiveness from Dan Lanning. I love me an aggressive play calling coach. I love going for 2. I love going for it on our 17th on a fake punt against Colorado when we're still up in the game and getting it and going crazy. I love it. But you're 0-3 against rivals, Washington and Oregon State now. You're 0-3 in your career here off your coaching decisions, off your aggressiveness. There's got to be a little bit of a sit back here and go, how can we still be our identity, be aggressive, but maybe take a couple notes and look at when you should take some points? Maybe read the momentum of the crowd in the game and realize how important that is in a college football game. And not to say that Dan Lanning doesn't. Look, I've never been a coach. But as a fan, you can feel that energy in the stadium, and you could feel it change on the field with the players. When the crowd gets into it, when the crowd is able to really roar, it could definitely change the impact in the momentum of the game for the other team. And I just felt like these fourth down plays allowed the crowd to get into it, allowed Washington's confidence to stay in the game. And you would have took those 3 points before halftime. You would have been tied in the game. You would have punted the ball down. You're right there at the 50-yard line. You probably had to, had him at the 10. Different things. I would have done 2 different coaching decisions that Dan Lanning would have done if it was me. So for me, I got to place some blame on Dan Lanning. I got to place some blame on the players. You're 0-3 on fourth down. Who wants to win that game? Who wants to step up? Washington came to do it. And, I'm not sitting here calling for Dan Lanning's job. I love Dan Lanning. I love his play calling. I love him as a coach. I love his recruiting. I want him at Oregon for as long as he wants to be here. But when you don't beat your rivals off certain play calls, I got to call it out, man. So not that I don't want Dan Lanning to still be aggressive. I want him to keep going for it on fourth down when it makes sense. But look, if you're in a tight game against a team that can beat you, you take the points whenever you can, man. You take the points whenever you can. Now, again, when you're down 11 and it's 29-18 against the number one offense, sure, go for it, man. At that point, you have nothing to lose, right? If you stop them, you're right there, and you can play defense and make them go length the field again against the number one offense, right? When you're on your 50-yard line, though, with 2 minutes left, they got no timeouts. Your defense been stopping them all game, just got a goal line stand. I mean, do you really want to give them momentum of giving a fourth down stop, giving them confidence, and then they come into the game on the 50-yard line feeling good? Like, it was just it was really tough for me. I didn't like it. I didn't love it. But you do know what I do love, guys. I love making money while watching sports. You already know what's up, guys. Making money and watching sports is what I love. That's why I'm in love with Mojo Fantasy. It's a crazy new app that turns sportsbook odds and selections into fantasy contests. Here's how it works, guys. There are thousands of NFL and MLB player props. You build a portfolio, and the better your portfolio performs, the more cash you win. Pick as many props as you want and try to beat the crowd. It's a whole new way to play fantasy. The props act like stocks so you can buy and sell live all game long. It's the only fantasy app that lets you make moves after the game starts, so you're not just stuck with a bad pick. You can cash in on a hot start or just hang on and let them ride. Cash contests are based on real sportsbook odds. Get the same live player prop selections, odds, and cash outs as Mojo's New Jersey sportsbook. You can trade sports like stocks. You control the action, ride your picks, cash out, or enter new positions instantly. And there's no house advantage, guys. Beat the crowd by building the biggest portfolio to climb the leaderboard and win cash prizes. That's it. Make money, make moves, make picks. Download now on the Apple App Store and use my code DuckZone for a 100% deposit match up to $100 for your first time deposit. Link in the description for more. All right, guys, as you know, I always like to give my 3 keys to the game in the preview and prediction episode. Here it was. So, number 1, I said get pressure on Penix. I wanted 5+ sacks. Now, I get it. That's real confident. Even when I wrote that down, I was like, maybe I should lower that to 3+. And Oregon finished the game with 1 sack. I think Brandon Dorlus got it when Penix's knee went down. He tried to throw it away. But here's the thing. I'm going to give a check mark to this, even though we didn't get 5 sacks. I thought that was pretty unrealistic to begin with. Washington's offensive line only gave up 3 sacks all year at this point. It would be unrealistic to give up 5 in one game. But that was just to kind of prove a point of what I want to see, how much havoc I wanted to see. And look, Oregon, I would say about 60% of the game, man, they were getting after Penix. They were making him feel it. They were making him feel uncomfortable. There's a reason why he averaged under 100 yards in this game from the season average. I think he came in averaging nearly 400 yards per game. He finished right around 300. So the Oregon defense held Penix under his season average, which would have been a bright spot to talk about if it was a win, right? But it was a loss because Penix made the plays at the very end of the game when he needed. And it was that 50-yard drive, those 2 passes. I think he would have finished under 300 yards passing if it wasn't for that. So think about that, man. I mean, we really held Penix under control. I'm not going to lie. I really like what the defensive line was doing. They were getting pressure. The linebackers were getting pressure. The safeties were coming down and getting pressure, making him feel it. He was throwing it out of bounds. The one thing that he's really good at about not getting sacked is when he's right about to get sacked, he'll just throw it near a receiver, even if it's completely off. He knows how to just throw it right out of the receiver and not get sacked and not take the lost yardage on the play. So really smart player Penix is. He's a senior quarterback. Don't expect nothing less from the number 1 Heisman guy in voting, right? But I would say they did get pressure for sure, number 1. And then number 2, again, this is a check, guys. Win the turnover battle. Like I said, before halftime, we got that pick. Jaleel Florence got that pick. We had all the momentum on our side. And then, again, Washington made the play when it was needed. 4th down, right before halftime. We're trying to score. We're trying to go up in the game right before halftime. And they stop us. And we're still down 4 entering halftime, which was tough. But we did win the turnover battle. And 3, run, baby, run. Run the football. Run for 225+ rushing yards. And let me just check. Did we run for 225? We ran for 204, so that's an X there. I did not. So we did ran the football. We ran the football like crazy. We ran it very effectively. So it's a check and an X though because we didn't hit 225. Like with this Washington defense, the way they missed tackles, the way our offensive line was looking, I really thought that Oregon could just run the ball really effectively, more effectively than they did. There was times where Washington kind of stuffed that run game a couple times, and it kind of surprised me, man. I thought Oregon would be able to. Excuse me, guys. Whoa. Just ate some food. Sorry. But I really thought that Oregon would be able to notch at least 225 at minimum, and they didn't even get that. They got 204. They did run the ball effectively, though. It's definitely a factor in this game and a positive note for Oregon, how they ran the ball against Washington's defense. I think Oregon is the most balanced team almost maybe in college football, the way they ran the ball, the way they passed the ball, they can do it all. And it makes it very tough on a defense to, key in on both things, man. If you got a running back that can just break tackles and is a weapon back there, and then you got Bo Nix and all these wide receivers on the outside, it makes for a long night for a defense. And Washington defense was getting tested, man. We were scoring on them, we were moving it. Well, we did pretty well. Now both defense stepped up at times. They got pressure, they got stops. But at the end of the day, these offenses prevailed pretty successfully. The Stars came out and played. Michael Penix, Bo Nix each had over 300 yards. Penix had 4 touchdowns on the day. Rome Odunze had 2 touchdowns receiving. Troy Franklin had over 150 yards, 8 receptions, big catches, and a touchdown over the top. So the Stars came out to play in this game. It's just Washington made the plays when it was needed. I'll keep repeating it. And I kept repeating to myself my whole ride home to Portland from Seattle. So those are my 3 keys to the game, and they're pretty much all check marks. To be honest, it's very, very rare that we get all 3 check keys to the game and we still lose the game. I think that just tells you how good this Washington team is. Look, guys, let's go look at these stats one more time. Look at this: 10-16 on third down. We're very efficient on third down. 541 total yards. We held Washington to 415, 337 through the air, 316 through the air through Washington. We finished with more passing yards than Washington. 204 yards Washington to 99. The key thing is right here, the fourth down efficiency. We were 0-3, left points on the board twice. That's 6 points that you could have had. One of those 3 points I think we should have took. The other fourth down made sense. When you were down 11, go for the touchdown. Don't get too deep in a hole, right? 3 points at that point wouldn't help. But when you're down 4, you're going to get the ball back right at halftime. Those 3 points would have mattered, right? Those 3 points would have mattered, in my opinion. And then that punt at the end of the game, right? You had the decision to punt or go for it. We decided to go for it. And we got stopped. Some running back slipped, Jordan James, and they stopped us. They got the ball back 2 plays later, right down the field, because you gave them great field position when your defense was playing really well. But what happened? The defense watched that fourth down stop happen. They heard that crowd. The other team got a bunch of confidence coming on the field. They're like, oh, we got handed at the 50-yard line. Here we go. So, man, just tough game, dude. When Oregon outcompetes the opponent in every stat category, all my keys of the game hit. But it came down to the players versus players, and one side executed, one side didn't. Shout out Dan Lanning for, I'm not gonna sit here and bash Dan Lanning, because shout out him for being aggressive, putting the trust in his players. Look, if it was me, I would think that our players are a lot better than their players too. But it just came down to who wants it more, and Washington made those plays on those fourth down, and Oregon got a tough loss. Oregon, look, when they scored the touchdown at the end of the game, Oregon got the ball. They got all the way down there, right there, 43-yard field goal. That's money for Camden Lewis every time. And it was, the ball is like, say this is the field goal right here to make it. This is the field goal. This is the ball 2 feet away from being right in the middle, 2 feet away. Like, oh, man. I just really hope we see these guys in the Pac-12 championship, man. Let me just tell you, because I feel we put them on a neutral field. This game could go either way. It could have went either way in Husky Stadium. Huskies had home field. They had college game day there. The place was going nuts. They really wanted this. They deserved that moment. Hey, clap it up for Husky fans, man. It's a heated rivalry. We go back and forth. We talk that shit. But at the end of the day, man, this reminded me of 2018. I was at that game when you guys missed the kick with Peyton Henry as your guys' kicker. You guys could have took that game away from Oregon at their home field advantage with Jake Browning for another year, where you guys could have beat the Ducks for a third straight year, but you guys missed it, sent it to overtime. Oregon gets all the momentum in that game and wins it in overtime when they had all the momentum at home in 2018. So it just kind of threw my mind when I was watching you guys storm the field, man. I was like, I hate it. I absolutely hate it, but it's absolutely well-deserved for Husky fans, man, because this is what makes the rivalry great. Duck fans, we're going to remember this moment. We're going to remember it for a long time. And we're going to take that hate, we're going to take that despise in every single rivalry game heading into the Big Ten. And that's what makes for great rivalries, just back and forth. Look at Ohio State, Michigan, right? Ohio State dominated Michigan for how long? Michigan was kind of down. Then Harbaugh comes in. Michigan beats Ohio State 2 years in a row. They're going to play again this year. Now Washington beats Oregon 2 years in a row, very by slim amounts of margin at the last second. Washington does it twice to Oregon. Now, both these teams, the reason I want them to rematch in this Pac-12 championship so bad is because we all know Bo Nix, Michael Penix, they're gone after this year. All right, they're going to have to replace the quarterback, both programs, and that's a big thing. So I want to see it one more time. I want to see Michael Penix. Was one of the best college football games I've ever seen. I was on the losing side of it, but just being there, seeing that experience, the back and forth, how even the teams were, it was an absolutely amazing experience that I'd absolutely love to relive again. So I'm hoping and praying Washington wins out. I'm hoping and praying Oregon wins out. I want to see them in Las Vegas in December for a berth to the college football playoff, man. How big would that be? And if Oregon beats them for that, that gives Oregon more bragging rights that, okay, you guys got the regular season win. We got the Pac-12 championship. We went to the playoff over y'all. Like, that's what makes this rivalry so great, man. And shout out Washington fans. You guys were great. The back and forth was fun. The dubs down, the dubs up, on social media. Attack me all you want, guys. I love it, man. I love it. I'm not someone that sits here now. There's some people that kind of take it over the top. There's a block button for those people. The people that like to have fun and keep it cool and have a fun rivalry. That's what I'm all about, man. And you guys stormed the field. You had your Purple Rain song going. You guys got the Ducks in the first top 10 matchup. Congrats, man. So there'll be more matchups in the future. Hey, it's always dubs down. I know we're on the losing side, but it's always dubs down. Hopefully we'll see you guys this season. If not, we'll see you next year in the Big Ten when you guys come to Eugene. That puts a wrap on this game, guys. Washington wins it 36-33. They just made the plays when it was needed. Oregon outcompeted them in every stat category, outrushed him, outpassed him, got to the quarterback. They did everything they possibly could except execute when it mattered most. That's the only thing. They missed their kicks. At the end of the game, they allowed Michael Penix to make two big plays at the end of the game. It was everything Washington wanted. It was everything Oregon didn't. And Michael Penix is now in the lead for the Heisman race. Washington's number 5 in the country, sitting right outside the college football playoff. They're bound to be locked in there soon. Oregon, number 9, still has everything in front of them. They're sitting there with one loss. They cannot lose another conference game. If they want to make the Pac-12 championship game, they got to win out. Now, every team they play from here on out, I expect Oregon to be a favorite at Utah. Like maybe Utah could be a slight favorite. Who knows? But I'd expect Oregon to be a favorite still. I expect Oregon to be a favorite against Oregon State. This Washington State game coming up, I expect Oregon to be a favorite. Washington State looked really bad against Arizona. So every game on the schedule left for the Ducks, they're winnable games. All we got to do is handle business, win out, and I'm sure we'll find our way in that Pac-12 championship. There was no love lost, no respect lost for the Ducks here. Voters showed that by just dropping them one spot. We lost on the road to a top 5 team now in Washington, who looks to be really damn good. Really damn good. I don't know who's going to beat them. So if we win out, they'll be probably top 2, maybe top 3. We'll be probably sitting right there, maybe 5, 6, 7, who knows? And looking for a college football playoff or maybe even a top 4 matchup if we meet up. Who knows? But I'm hoping and praying we do, man. If we don't, we'll get you guys next year. But at this point, man, I'm just kind of going, let's handle business. Let's focus on Washington State now. Let's move on to next week. Let's focus on the Cougars. Let's handle it game by game. And then let's get to that Pac-12 championship. And I'm crossing my fingers, man. I'm hoping Washington at this point. I hate them, but I want them to win out. I want to see him again in December, man. I really want to get him back. All right. Washington wins it 36-33 over Oregon. That wasn't all, though. I get it was bad news that we lost. But, guys, we had some big news. We had a 5-star defensive lineman, Aiden Breland, commit to the Ducks right before kickoff, guys. It was around 11:30 was when this happened. I wasn't really able to get it out. I was tailgating and stuff. I had a buddy of mine who makes graphics do this graphic. Shout out Sports. I'm thinking Sports Zone 240 or something like that. Man, I forgot. I should have wrote it down. Sorry about that, buddy. But here, let's go to I'll just search it on Instagram real quick. Here we go. I got Instagram right here I can pull up because I wanted to give this guy a shout out for making this graphic for me because I wasn't able to get a graphic out. Oh, yeah, Sports Zone 240. I got it. There we go. So shout out to Sports Zone 240 for this graphic. Aiden Breland, elite defensive lineman out of Mater Dei High School, coming out of California. If you guys don't know Mater Dei High School, it's one of the most prestigious high schools for a football program in America. I mean, that school, I think they've only lost like 2 or 3, a handful of games over the last 5 years. We're talking about some of the best athletes coming out of that school. Here, I wanted to show you guys this guy, Aiden Breland's highlight reel real quick, because I found some highlights of Aiden Breland, and man, this guy can play. Check it out here. Share my screen with you guys. We'll get IG pulled up. All right, let's check this guy out, man. So Aiden Breland commits to the Ducks, 5-star. He's 6'5", 290 pounds, number 7 defensive lineman in the 2024 class, number 3 player ranked in California, and a top 50 player, number 38 in the country. So this guy's a real deal. You're getting a top 50 player in the whole country, top 10 player in his position, and a top 3 player in the state of California. What states have the most talent in recruiting? Texas, Florida, and California. Those 3 schools, if you can get top players out of those 3 states, which Oregon on the recruiting trail definitely has. Texas was a great pipeline last year. Now we're getting guys out of California. Aiden Breland, elite defensive lineman. We're going to the Big Ten. What do you need? Big defensive linemen, big physical guys up front, and we are doing it. We're Dan Lanning brought in 10, total of 10 offensive tackles, or offensive linemen and defensive linemen in the 2023 class, and now he's bringing in a 5-star, top 3 in California. I mean, come on, this guy is legit. Aiden Breland, that's a big time get for the Ducks. Now, we missed on Brandon Baker, his teammate, if you guys remember, right? His teammate, Brandon Baker, at Mater Dei is an offensive tackle, a 5-star. He decided to go to Texas. Okay, Oregon lost that recruiting battle. Felt like Oregon was a huge favorite for that one, and we're looking for an offensive tackle. When we lost him, I was like, damn, who are we going to get for an offensive tackle? Who's Dan Lanning looking for? And we just got this news today, guys, that official visit, 5-star offensive tackle Jordan Seaton is going to take an official visit for Oregon-Washington State game. So Jordan Seaton, let me just search up his 247 Sports profile here. He's a 5-star offensive tackle. When we missed on Brandon Baker, it looks like they're trying to go after Jordan Seaton here. He's out of IMG Academy, another prestigious school when it comes to football. IMG is a private school where you need basically a scholarship, an athletic scholarship, to get onto this boarding school here. Jordan Seaton's ranked nationally 30th in the country, number 2 offensive tackle in the country, and 5th in Florida. Now, the only problem for me is literally when you're the number 2 offensive tackle in the country coming out of Florida and you're in SEC country, you're more than likely going to go to schools like Alabama, who looks warm on their college list right now, Florida, South Carolina, Oklahoma, Tennessee. I mean, these are the schools that are in his top 5 right now. So according to 247, the interest, they're all warm right now. So that's the tough part about trying to recruit a kid out of Florida at IMG. But nonetheless, he's taking a visit. He's interested. He's coming out to go visit Eugene. So when we do this Washington State game against the Cougars, Duck fans show out, because we lost out on Brandon Baker. This guy, Jordan Seaton, wants to come out and visit the West Coast. Might be his first time. I don't know. Maybe the first time ever out here on the West Coast. A Florida kid at IMG. I don't know how many other West Coast schools he's interested in, and he's all of a sudden interested in the Ducks, wants to take a visit. This is big time for the Ducks on the recruiting trail. We just landed a 5-star defensive lineman, and now we're looking at a 5-star offensive tackle, Jordan Seaton. It looks like focus is shifting there for a new offensive tackle target for the Ducks. So shout out Dan Lanning on the recruiting trail. One doesn't work, okay, we'll go to the next guy. And we've seen that from Dan Lanning. He's able to adjust on the recruiting trail. If this guy don't work, he's got the next guy. And like Dan Lanning said, he said this in multiple interviews, which I picked up on, is he said nowadays, back in the day, finishing second in recruiting battle, think of Brandon Baker here, going to Texas. We finished second in that recruiting battle, no doubt. He was definitely going to go to Oregon if he wasn't going to Texas. He got a nice NIL deal from Texas. You can believe that. If we finish second, right, let's say things don't really work out for Brandon Baker. Texas gets a lot of offensive linemen. I mean, they stole another one, Kelvin Benjamin, a couple years ago from the Ducks, another 5-star that we could talk about. They get a lot of offensive linemen, a lot of talent there. Let's say Brandon Baker doesn't get a lot of play time. Maybe things don't work out with the NIL deal that I was supposed to have, or maybe coaching styles. I don't know. Anything. It could be anything. Finishing second in a recruiting battle is a win nowadays instead of a loss where it used to be because the transfer portal. Nowadays, kids can just, if it doesn't work out, they want to go elsewhere, they want to have a new setting, they can just hit the transfer portal and they're right on the way to a new team. That's why finishing second, and even if you lose the recruiting battle the first time, that transfer portal opens up. Go hit the guys that you were just finished second and keep a note on who you're finishing second with. So Brandon Baker could be one of those guys maybe in the future. We're going after Jordan Seaton now. It's going to be tough for him. I don't know if Oregon's going to be able to land this guy. He's coming out all the way from Florida. A lot of SEC schools out there with a lot of money and stuff, a lot of NIL stuff. Does he really want to come out all the way out here to Oregon and play ball? We've seen it before. We've seen some Florida guys. DJ Johnson was just one of them. Can we see Jordan Seaton do it? We're going to have him on campus this next weekend, Duck fans, so make sure you guys show out. Aiden Breland, 5-star defensive lineman. Ducks land a big one there. First 5-star in this 2024 class that we've landed so far. Hopefully Jordan Seaton is a second one coming up later on in his recruiting battle. All right, let's go on to the next segment here. We got Pac-12 recap for week 7. Friday night game. I was at the casino. Shout out to Emerald Queen Casino out there in Seattle. Stanford and Colorado. Colorado went up 29-0. I left the casino when it was 29-0. I thought this game was wrapped. I mean, I was like, okay, well, Stanford, obviously, in my mind, like one of the worst teams in the Pac-12. Colorado, they got Shedeur Sanders. They're not an elite team. That was proven when they went up against Oregon, lost 42-6. But they have a pretty good team. They have a pretty good quarterback there. They can move the ball. And being up 29-0, I'm pretty sure Colorado was at home that game. I thought that game was a wrap. I think a lot of people went to sleep and thought that was a wrap. And you wake up and you find out Stanford won that game 46-43 in double overtime. Travis Hunter got his I'm not even going to say it. Travis Hunter got mossed. I'll put it like that. He got mossed. Randy mossed. Catch got caught over his head. The guy caught it on his helmet and just drug him into the end zone. It was a crazy catch. The guy he was guarding had over 200 yards. And what happened to all this Travis Hunter hype train talk? I don't know. But Colorado loses 46-43. Tough loss for Deion Sanders and that Colorado team. Stanford gets the biggest comeback win in football program history. So shout out to the Stanford Cardinal for not giving up and getting a big time win for their season. USC Notre Dame. I had a feeling this was going to happen, but not like that. I mean, wow. That Notre Dame team will really put it on USC. Now, Notre Dame, they're still ranked the number 21. I think they got a couple losses now. One or two, I'm not sure. But they've had a tough schedule, man. They've went up against some tough opponents Notre Dame has, while USC, on the other hand, is the top 10 team considerably, right? They were. They just played all cupcakes, man, going easy the first 6 games. And what does that do? When you go up against a real team that's been tested already, and you're sitting there playing cupcakes the whole time, and you're not worried about defense, everybody's been warning you. The defense doesn't look good against those cupcakes. 48-20. Notre Dame blows the boats off USC. Man, that was a bad game for Caleb Williams and USC and Lincoln Riley. Good thing for them, it wasn't a conference game. So USC still undefeated in conference play. Oregon, Washington still play USC in November. So those are going to be big time matchups on what's going to happen in this Pac-12 shakeout. So still a lot of football to be played with before we start talking about that. Big time matchup here, big top 20 matchup, 18 UCLA, 15 Oregon State. The Beavs get a big win, 36-24 over UCLA. UCLA had a big win over Washington State a couple weeks ago. They lost to Utah on the road. The UCLA, their defense looks really good, but sometimes their offense just looks a little stagnant. Dante Moore is still a freshman, still feeling things out. And the Beavs at home were able to just get things done, run the football, do what they needed to do to control the football game, essentially. And they get a big top 20 win. Shout out the Beavs there. I'm always hoping, because we don't play UCLA this year, so kind of hoping that UCLA loses every time they go against a team that we play. But, like Utah, I was kind of glad they beat them. And Oregon State, I was kind of glad that Oregon State, because we don't play UCLA. So I want our opponents that we play to win. So when we play them, it makes us look better, right? You guys get the concept. California at Utah. Utah gets a big win, 34-14, handle business. Utah's defense at home is really good. It's actually pretty impressive what they're doing without their starting quarterback. And they've been kind of injured at with Keithy as well. And then this was a head scratcher. Arizona beats Washington State 44-6 on the road in Pullman. 44-6. I mean, Washington State just didn't add up. I don't know if they just didn't show up, man. They did not show up. I don't know if it's Washington State was looking ahead to Oregon. I don't know if Washington State's just down that they lost a game already. I don't know, man, but 44-6. Washington State started out on fire. I mean, they beat the Beavs. The Beavs almost came back in that game, but they beat them, right? Big win for them. And they beat Wisconsin early in the season, and now it kind of feels like the Washington State train is just kind of derailing a little bit. I don't know what's going on with these guys, man. They just did not show up for this game at home. I have a feeling maybe they're looking ahead to Oregon. I don't know, but Washington State loses this game to Arizona 44-6. Now, give some credit to the Wildcats here as well. That freshman quarterback, man, he looks really damn good. The defense for Arizona is really coming alive. And, their coach, man, he's stolen a couple recruiting battles. He's got a couple guys through the transfer portal. Jaden DeLauro was a transfer portal guy. And, man, they're building something special out there in Arizona. They look to be dangerous. I'm kind of fortunate that we don't got to play UCLA or Arizona because both those schools have some pretty good defenses. And I'm kind of glad we kind of missed the train there. But that's your kind of Week 7 Pac-12 recap there. Stanford beats Colorado. Washington beats Oregon by 3. Notre Dame blows the brakes off of USC. Oregon State gets a nice solid 12-point win, 36-24 over UCLA. Utah beats Cal 34-14, and Arizona beats Washington State 44-6. What a weekend for the Pac-12. Things are going to start shaking out. Things are getting real, guys. Mid-October, we're going to get into November here soon, where Oregon and Washington are going to play USC. Things are going to start shaking out for the Pac-12. I said this earlier in the year. Maybe it will happen. I have a good feeling that Pac-12 will get enough respect to get 2 teams in the CFP. The way Washington and Oregon played, if we meet them again, let's say we play another close game and we beat Washington in the same similar fashion, do you really leave Washington out? I mean, this is going to get down the wire. This is going to be fun. And what a way to do it in the last year of the Pac-12. Am I right, guys? That ends this podcast, guys. Washington got a tough win, 36-33. But the good news is everything is still in front for the Ducks. Dan Lanning, he's going to learn from this. He's a young coach. He's still going to have the same mindset. I don't expect him to change at all, and I don't want him to change. I want to have the same trust in his players. I want his players to see that they trust him and that we're there to win the ball game. But at the same time, let's maybe take a couple mental notes and go, maybe we should take points there, maybe against this, maybe get a new analytic guy. I don't know. I'm not a coach. That's why he makes the big bucks. I'm just a podcaster here to talk about it. I'll be here for the next one for our preview and prediction. We got a big game against Washington State, guys. They just lost. They just got their ass handed to them against Arizona. They're going to want to beat the Ducks. The Ducks are furious. They just lost that game against their rival. I think they're going to come out with their head on fire. I think the throwback unis come out. I got my jersey ready to go. I'll be out there. I'll be out there in the game. I'll be there. So I'll be having my preview and prediction here as well on Wednesday. We're going to have a special guest, a podcaster who covers Washington State as well. Talk about that matchup. So stay locked in. Go Ducks. I appreciate everybody for tuning in once again. I'm your host, Dominiqk Peterson. This is the DuckZone503 Podcast, where we talk all things Oregon football. As always, go Ducks.